The main meme providers in the MMA world, the mountain of muscles and testosterone, the culprit of great canceled fights, the owner of the secret juice and a tremendous power enough to crush the entire middleweight division. Once Paulo Costa was a very promising fighter in the eyes of fans and the UFC's management. But now the fighter is associated with scandals and memes for the most part. The league wants to make the fight between the Brazilian and Khamzat Chimaev happen in Abu Dhabi this year in October. Get comfortable and be ready to have a journey into the spaciousness of MMA. You're watching MMA Rocket. Let's get started. Let's fast forward to 2017. At that time, Paulo had a title of prestigious league jungle fight in Brazil and an unfortunate experience of participating in the Ultimate Fighter show behind him. He slumped out of it after a second fight. A beefcake and a charismatic character, they gave him another opponent to test the Brazilian skills. He took on Oluwale Bamgbose, who at the time had a 100% knockout rate. He was undefeated before signing with the UFC and made his debut on short notice to face Uriah Hall, and lost as many expected. By the time of the fight against Paulo, he had the record of 1-2 in the league, and he was near to getting cut from there. After getting a win over Oluwale Bamgbose, Paulo caught the attention of many. He was fighting only in the main cards. His popularity was going up and people were talking about him. That's why promoting and giving him famous opponents was a smart decision to make the league. They picked the former welterweight champion Johnny Hendricks. Big Rig once was a severe knockout machine with elite wrestling. He put on the toughest fight against St. Pierre and arguably beat him. Hendricks captured the title in the fight against Robbie Lawler and lost to him right after that. Then his career began missing weight and was forced to move up to middleweight. But things didn't change then. However, he was still considered to be a big name in the game, and it was a great opportunity for Paulo to put it in his resume. Paulo was grateful to the league for giving him such a fight, and he was very respectful towards Johnny. However, the respect doesn't matter when the cage is locked, and Paulo was looking forward to knocking his future opponent out.
I have 9 knockouts, 8 in the first round, in 10 fights. So I will keep my plan and knock on him. This is my
resume.
Yes, of course. It's the best moment of my career. Johnny Hendricks is the best name of my career, and I can do it. I can make a victory, and this is the best fight of my career, of course.
After beating Hendricks, Paulo entered the top 15 of the middleweight division. He was moving up in the rankings, even without fighting, and soon got the name of his next opponent ranked higher than him. It was the experienced and dangerous striker Uriah Hall. Hall became popular due to his knockouts and highlights, which make the audience sit with their mouths open watching it. He doesn't have the title aspirations, but one shouldn't blink when watching him fight. At that time, Hall was the most dangerous opponent in the Brazilian's career due to his skills and fighting experience in the UFC. However, Paulo's hype was so huge that many believed in his victory, which made him a big betting favorite. Initially, there was supposed to be a fight that took place in April 2018, but due to different circumstances, it was rebooked for UFC 226 in July. First time, but it didn't disturb him at all. He wasn't worried about the coming fight, and he considered himself to be better than Hall both physically and mentally.
My mind is very, very powerful. So I think he have a mind not very strong. His mind is weak. So, and his body is weak too. So I will destroy him. I'm a fucking animal. He not have chance. I will erase him.
Uriah looked humble and ready to fight anyone as usual. The Brazilian didn't reckon that Hall was the toughest fight in his career so far. However, it's worth mentioning that Paulo hadn't faced a man before that was that good at strike. Fight went on. His strategy was clear: to slow his opponent down. Paulo was digging his opponent's body with massive and looping middle kicks. Hall was trying to keep the Brazilian at a distance using his jab, and it was working great in the beginning of the fight. However, Paulo was able to get to close, and then he started to press the opponent against the fence and let his hands go. And no judge that night, he started actively going forward. Both fighters were landing shots, relentless pressure. In the middle of the round, they got into another exchange, and Paulo landed a massive combination which dropped Uriah. Another knockout and a convincing win over a truly worth all his credits and admitted his high-level skills.
Yes, Uriah Hall is a very tough guy. He have a very dangerous spin back, and I was worried with his spin back because it's very dangerous. So this is difficult to me to keep the the good distance, and he used this to put his jab in my mouth. But in the second round, I close the distance. I find the right distance to put my hands in his body, his face, to put his down in and to get the knockout.
The most recent fight of Costa up to this day. Traditionally, we make the list of fights in chronological order, but I can't put this fight in the #1 spot, as we have a legendary clash there, which will always be remembered as Paulo's swan song. But we'll talk about it later. Back in 2022, our today's hero was having some. Then he took on Marvin Vettori. Paulo failed to make weight and forced the league to make this fight in the light heavyweight division. Costa lost this one via unanimous decision. A series of canceled fights and 2 losses in a row undermined Paulo's reputation. The league decided to bring him back to the win column and gave him another big name. He took on Luke Rockhold, who hadn't competed since 2019. He was one of the most well-rounded fighters in the world once. Great stand-up game, elite wrestling, trained with the best masters in AKA and the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He had it all. But his ego played a bad joke on him, and Luke didn't train properly for his opponents, which caused him getting severely knocked out twice in a row by Romero and Blachowicz. However, his pride didn't let him retire like that, so he decided to come back and put on the fireworks one last time. Initially, he was planning to come back in November 2021 to fight Sean Strickland, but Luke pulled off due to an injury. He was able to get back only in the summer of UFC 277, but this time, through Paulo's fault, the fight was rebooked for UFC 278. There was a mutual disdain between the fighters, but it was worth noting that despite his pride, Luke admitted his future opponent's toughness.
Yeah, I'm fighting a beast, no doubt. And I wanted that. I want a guy that scares me and gets me up in the morning. And that fuels me to fucking push myself to the end of who I am. And that's what defines a real man. Is the finding the biggest test, the biggest challenge, and going out there and fucking putting themselves up to it. You're gonna succeed or die trying.
Paulo was in a very difficult position. Scandals and losses brought him in a bad spot in the rankings and tainted his career in general. That's why he very, very much needed a win.
It's very important to win, of course, and I did what I needed to do to get here very, very sharp. And I have no doubt I will win next Saturday because he's not more prepared and he hasn't my ability, my powerful, my prime that I bring for this fight.
The fighters got into a heated altercation during the press conference, which was initiated by Luke for the most part.
I'll treat Paulo like a bitch if he gets to the ground. It'll be over. Month after month, all the cosmetic bullshit you got done, you little bitch, shut up.
Are you surprised that Luke is bringing this energy to you today?
He doesn't even know what fucking energy means. The motherfucker, his girlfriend, is doing every thought process for him. He doesn't know shit.
But the fight was competitive, and it was remembered as a back-and-forth 3-round battle. Paulo was marching forward with confidence and landing shots in the first round, but the veteran wasn't willing to give up, and he was fighting back. In the very beginning of it, Luke landed a solid combination on his opponent, and with his hands dropped, Luke was still dangerous, and he was doing a solid damage to our today's hero. Bent, however, he kept fighting back and wobbled Costa with one of his shots. The fight hit the canvas in the mirror there first, but Rockhold managed to sweep him and decided to make this fight even more memorable when after that, Luke officially announced his retirement from the UFC and left the one who is still capable of putting on a fight. Was there a chance that any other fight would take this spot? The legendary clash between 2 titans in the middleweight division who would look like the Mr. Olympia competition participants even at heavyweight. At that time, fighting a long win streak, he earned the title shot, but the champion Michael Bisping refused to fight him. Then the Soldier of God took on Robert Whittaker in the interim championship bout and sensationally lost. That remains questionable up to this day. However, Yoel was still considered as the most dangerous man in the weight class. Paulo was quickly uprising to the top, and people had been comparing him to Kraken for a long time, and looking forward to the fight between these two. The management acknowledged that the fans wanted to see this one, so they made it happen. What could have been better was that they made the fight between the 2 most terrifying punchers in the middleweight division. Apart from that, people should have remembered that Romero is the Olympics freestyle wrestling silver medalist. It was one of the most highly anticipated fights of 2019. The fighters had a conflict between them. They were the main competitors to each other, and the question was whether the Cuban would be able to maintain his position or would he let the new generation come and replace him. But despite everything, both fighters were giving credit to each other's skills.
This is the fight that I looking for a long time, and Romero is one of the tough guy of this division. After beat him, I will put one of my hands on the title, you know. So it's a very important fight to do, and I'm happy to be here on Wednesday, very close of the fight. Romero is good, is here, and I don't care if he will make weight or not.
At that time, Yul hadn't competed in a year, and the main question was whether his prime was behind him or not. He was already 42 years old. It is a big number not only for a middleweight, but for any fighter, even a heavyweight. Romero had a young and charged-up Brazilian athlete standing up against him who looked even a little bigger than Layoff, and his age. Romero's reputation and status were so high that he was considered a favorite heading into the fight against such a dangerous opponent. Let's get down to the battle itself. Paulo landed a short left hook that knocked his opponent down, but after a few seconds he got dropped himself after a right hand from the Cuban. After that, the fight followed the same pattern all over again. The Brazilian was marching forward while Soldier of God was fighting back against the cage and exploding with attacks pushing his opponent back. Then the fight looked even. Paulo was retreating while Yul was keeping his guard high and landing shots. It was a back and forth battle and neither of them wanted to leave any shots unanswered. Every thrown punch was followed by another one, and the fight ended exactly in this manner. Paulo Costa's result was quite debatable. However, it's easy to say that there was no clear winner of this fight. Men were equally matched that night, and it could have gone either way, but the real winners were the fans who got to. Despite all the scandals and talks around Paulo, he still remains the guy who guarantees emotions to the audience every time he fights. That alone is a big value for fans. We strongly encourage you to leave all your affairs for a while to rewatch. If you haven't enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe to our channel. This was